I put 5 speakers to the test, and I was absolutely shocked to learn which one I liked the best in the end. Did you ever wonder if there's parts of your gear that you wish you could test against something else to see if it makes any improvement over your sound? Something that gets, a little closer to the sound that you're hearing in your head. I pitted the speaker in my favorite amp against 4 other well-known speakers so that you can save time, money, and hopefully make some educated decisions if you are thinking about doing some speaker swapping yourself. I thought it would be cool to include you in on my experiment. I'm going to share with you what I did to test, what I learned from listening to each speaker, and something really cool that you probably don't know about that I used in this experiment that I ultimately ended up keeping and using. Here's the worst speaker that I tested, at least worst to me. Here's the one that ended up being my favorite. So stick around to hear examples of all the speakers and find out which one I hated and which one surprised me the most and ended up loving. Tone and my sound has always been really important to me for nearly as long as I remember, especially the last 45 years or so, give or take. I've been playing jazz pretty much exclusively for the last 23 years, but I got my start at a very tender age and went sort of between playing country and rock along with other styles mixed in there for several years. Your sound is a very personal thing. I love that you can hear Wes Montgomery or Eddie Van Halen or Pat Martino or Jeff Beck and instantly know who it is just from hearing them. I've built guitars, I've built my own pedal boards, I've built pedals, more on pedals later. I've built my own cables. I've always been interested in what makes things tick and how I can tweak things and make something that much more personal, especially when I do it myself. Just a quick breakdown of how I approached this. All 5 speakers had the same 4 things played by me through each speaker. 2 with a jazz neck position humbucker sound, and 2 things played on a bridge pickup single coil Telecaster sound. 1 clean and 1 distorted. This way, I thought, not only is this a good test for anything that I would ever play, but also wide enough examples so that any player of any style can gain an opinion on these. But first, let's have a listen to the differences between all 5 speakers in quick succession. I'll repeat the same thing at the end of the video and reveal which speaker was 1, 2, 3, etc. 90% of guitarists likely buy a pedal first before anything else to try something new, maybe a pickup or something second. Your average pedal will probably be what? In the $175 to $200 plus range. Yeah, there's some pedals that are, more than double that or less than half that. But that's my point. That's the average. But what if I told you there's probably something cheaper that you can experiment with? Speakers. The most expensive speaker I tried was $144, and the cheapest was $99 that I bought on Amazon on sale for $79. I'll have you listen to all 4 examples through each speaker separately so that your ears can get more acquainted to each speaker's sound before that final rapid listen. Now, I wanted to get as true a representation for each speaker that I could possibly get. Therefore, the only effects I used was 2 stacked overdrive pedals, a J-Rocket Touch overdrive, going into a Greer Lightspeed overdrive. Then after that, a little bit of compression to the signal from my Strymon OB1 pedal before hitting the amp. Yeah, I know. Everyone puts the compression at the beginning of the chain. I think it sounds more natural after overdrives. All the settings for the 2 stacked overdrives, the compressor, the amp were not changed at all from speaker to speaker. Absolutely nothing was added, changed, or EQ'd during the recording of every example for each speaker in my DAW on my computer. Nothing altered in post either. Not even any adjustments to volume differences. I wanted everything to accurately reflect what came out of each speaker naturally. And notice there was absolutely no reverb either. Didn't want that to determine any differences in sound. I used the same Shure SM57 the whole time, set up in the same spot of the speaker grill, the same distance from the speaker grill each time. The amp I used was my Port City Pearl head into my Port City OS 112 speaker cab. OS, in case you're wondering, stands for oversize. The fact that the speaker cabinet is in a separate enclosure from the amp, I thought, made this experiment as fair as possible. All I had to do is remove the head, place it on the floor, tip the cabinet forward, remove the back panel, and swap the speaker out each time, then put the cabinet back upright in the same spot. This way, none of the knobs could accidentally be moved or bumped when replacing the speaker each time, like what could potentially happen more in a combo amp. And of course, I used the same cab every time. So, funny story. I'm going to share with you the events that led me to making this video. I received an amp for free about 2 months before. It needed some repairs to get it in working order, so I had it repaired. Easy enough. But the speaker was also blown. So I bought a replacement speaker for it. That was the Weber Silverbell. And I liked that speaker so much in this new amp, I thought, what if I try this speaker out in my Port City? If I like it better, I'll put that speaker that came in the Port City and put it in the other amp I just got for free. Are you following me? Well, here I am on Amazon doing some Christmas shopping, as we all do, right? And this Celestion speaker pops up that look just like the ones that used to be in my Fender Pro Sonic amp that I owned for 19 years. I loved those speakers, but it's a 10-inch speaker, and it was on sale. So naturally, I bought it. Some of you may have caught that I mentioned my Port City cab is a 112. You can't put a 10-inch speaker in a cutout for a 12-inch speaker. Or can you? Well, when I was scouring the Weber website looking for a speaker to buy, I noticed this, the rebaffler. It allows you to put a smaller speaker into a larger cutout in your cabinet speaker baffle. So naturally, after buying the 10-inch Celestion, I immediately went back to the Weber website and bought the 12-inch to 10-inch conversion rebaffler. So now I thought, great, now I have a third speaker to try out. But then I started to remember, I have another 10-inch speaker in another amp that's over there. That's why I'm pointing over there. Let's add that one to the test. And yeah, you guessed it, I thought about another speaker. The speaker that's in my Peavey Classic 30. Highly underrated amp, by the way. So now let's add that one to the mix as well. Then you know what happened? I guess the YouTuber side of my brain kicked in, and I thought, well, since I'm testing all these different speakers, I really should make a video documenting it all. It'll be interesting to share what the outcomes are with everything when it's all said and done. So here we are. I also want to bring up a few things that's very important. The speaker that came out of my Peavey Classic 30 is a 16 ohm speaker. All the other speakers were 8 ohms. Now, it's commonly known that the best practice is to match the impedance of your speaker with the output impedance of your amp. Some amps, usually only in head form, have the ability to adjust the output impedance to match any speaker cabinet that may have a different impedance. This way you can travel lighter with just the head and use backline or a rented cabinet. That impedance switching range could be anywhere from 2 to 16 ohms. My amp's highest impedance is 8 ohms. So here's some important information to keep in mind. You can't just swap out any old speaker of any impedance. Just remember, your total speaker impedance can be higher than your amp's rating. It may sound quieter and have a slight difference in tone, but it's safe. No harm should ever happen to your amp. But don't ever have a speaker that has a lower impedance than your amp's rating. Your amp is fine if it sees resistance that is higher, like my amp at 8 ohms into a speaker that's 16 ohms. But if you put a speaker that's, say, 4 ohms or less and your amp's impedance is 8 ohms, your output transformer does not see enough resistance and starts flowing out too much energy. It will heat up, maybe even melt, or even burn itself out. Not good. A good analogy would be if you look at it like a car engine that isn't connected to a drivetrain. Resistance, in other words. Under load, the engine works as it should, the way it's designed. Without resistance, especially at higher RPMs, the engine will just fly apart. Pistons and rods will be flying all over the place. Because it doesn't have any load. It's designed to have a load. So for that reason, it's always safe to match a speaker with the same impedance. What about you? Which speaker did you like best overall? Let me know in the comments. I think it'll be fun hearing your thoughts and descriptions of what you heard in each speaker. So let me know. I'm going to post my list of what speaker I thought worked best for the different examples that I played down in the description section. I'll also put in there which speaker I thought won out overall and the one that I ended up keeping in my cabinet. I will also include some links to the speakers and some other things I used on my channel that you may be interested in getting yourself. I get a small commission from some of these links if you use them, and it's at no extra cost to you, and it just helps support my channel if it's something that you were planning on buying anyway. I am in no way sponsored by any manufacturer. These are all my own opinions on the stuff that I experimented with, and I bought everything myself. If you're into overdrive pedals and want to check out my demo of the J-Rocket Touch that I did a while back, watch this video here. I also wrote a song for the demo that pays homage to Jeff Beck. But wait, if you're into jazz at all, check out this lesson on how to improvise over chord changes like a pro. I explain how, as simply as possible, to do that.